Rain hammered the roof of St. Gabriel Memorial like 1,000 angry drums, and the young billionaire everyone in Lagos called Kel strode through the sliding doors with his shirt sticking to his chest and a phone buzzing in his hand. Another alert flashed across his screen. 2,100,000 Nigerian nairas. Pediatric surgery deposit. St. Gabriel Memorial. Kel's jaw tightened. The test was supposed to be simple. One Saturday, one credit card, 2 women. He had given the same black titanium card, his personal card, to his girlfriend, Vanessa, and to his maid, Ebony. Buy whatever you need, he'd said. No questions asked. He wanted to see who they were when no one was watching. He wanted to see what money did to hearts. He'd expected designer bags and champagne from Vanity Fair on Ozumba. Maybe a private chef booking. Vanessa had laughed, kissed his cheek, and called him my sweet Lagos lion. Ebony had kept her eyes down, hands folded over the hem of her simple yellow dress. "Are you sure, sir?" she'd asked, voice soft like early Harmattan wind. "Yes," he'd said. "I'm sure." The first alert, an hour later, had been a storm by itself. 28 million Nigerian nairas. Exclusive jewelers of Victoria Island. Vanessa. He pictured her posing under white lights, rings glittering, a glass wall full of watches behind her. She loved to be seen. She called it content. He called it a little bit loud. But the second alert stopped him cold. 1,500,000 Nigerian nairas. St. Gabriel Memorial Mortuary. Mortuary? The third alert had dragged him through his gates and into his car. The fourth sent him racing across the bridge. And now, in the humming fluorescent light of the hospital lobby, Kel cut past a cluster of nurses and made for the billing counters, where a meek line of families clutched folders and prayer books. He saw her before she saw him. Ebony, 24 maybe, slim, brown skin like cola nut and eyes that were always careful. Her black scarf was damp with rain. She stood at the counter with the card between her fingers. A man in a faded driver's jacket stood beside her, hat twisting in his hands. His face was crushed with worry. "Please," Ebony said to the cashier, "if we do not pay, they will postpone the surgery again." The cashier, who looked like he had argued with too many desperate people, sighed. "Madam, the deposit has cleared. The boy is being prepared." Kel moved closer. "Ebony." She turned, and fear flashed across her face the way lightning flashes and leaves the sky somehow darker. "Sir, what are you doing with my card?" His voice sounded harder than he intended. The driver took a step back. Ebony swallowed. "Sir, the driver's son. He fell from a kiosk last week. His leg is broken in 2 places. They had him in the corridor for days. The hospitals," she gestured at the ceiling, "the halls, the world. They ask for deposit first. Sir, I saw your card on the kitchen counter. You said, buy whatever you need. I thought you meant it." Kel's phone buzzed again. Another alert. 350,000 Nigerian nairas. St. Gabriel Memorial Pharmacy. He didn't speak for a moment. He just looked at her. The scarf, the careful eyes, the way her hands trembled, but she stood her ground. He turned to the driver. "What's your name?" "Sunday, sir." The man said, voice rough. "My boy is Chigazi. He is 9. I begged. I sold my radio. They said deposit or nothing. Ebony, she spoke to your head cook. She brought your card and said, 'God sees us.'" Kel exhaled, a sound that came from a deep, old well inside him. "And the mortuary?" Ebony's chin lifted a little. "The gardener's wife. She died this morning. Mr. Musa has been digging graves for others his whole life. They wrapped her in a cheap cloth and told him to come back when he had money for a proper space. I could not stand it. It is not right to bury a woman who fed neighbors with a tin of Gary like an animal. Sir, I bought her a decent place and a simple casket. On your card. Forgive me." Kel felt something inside him shift, slow and heavy like a gate unlocking. He had told himself this test was clean, a social experiment, a clever trick to measure love and loyalty. He told himself he was a scientist in a white coat, not a boy asking the wind for a sign. But there was no clean line here. There was a woman in a simple scarf, a driver's cracked hands, a gardener's grief. There were rooms where children waited for surgery because money hadn't yet arrived. There were corridors that smelled like bleach and fear. "Wait," he said, voice more gentle. "Why didn't you ask me?" Ebony looked down. "Sir, you are busy. Important people call you. Sometimes asking a wealthy man makes him feel like God. I did not want to make you God. I only wanted to do what was right." Behind them, a door opened and a nurse called, "Family of Chigazi Sunday?" The driver's hat fell from his hands to the floor with a soft slap. He scrambled, picked it up, nodded to Kel, and followed the nurse down the corridor, shoulders shaking with quiet relief. Kel watched him go, and the rain outside the glass seemed to soften. He glanced at Ebony again. Her scarf was damp. Her shoes were cheap, the soles beginning to thin. She had chosen caskets and surgery over gold and cameras. His phone buzzed again. 12,500,000 Nigerian nairas. Exclusive jewelers of Victoria Island. Another charge. Another ring. Another story. But this time, a different alert slid beneath it, almost shy. 1,800,000 Nigerian nairas. Igioma's keepsakes and pawn. Kel blinked. That was a small shop off Sanusi Fafunwa, narrow and bright with glass. He hadn't been near it in years. Igioma, his mother's name. She had died when he was 19, the year before his first app bought him out of scarcity. She had worn a ring with 3 tiny stones that glowed like 3 quiet blessings. It had vanished in the months before she died. He had assumed his father pawned it during one of those long, silent droughts that swallow dignity. Kel turned to Ebony, breath thinning. "What did you buy from Igioma's keepsakes?" Ebony's eyes flicked to the floor, to the ceiling, to the past. "Sir, tell me." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small white box. Even before she opened it, even before the paper peeled back with that familiar hush, Kel knew. His mother's ring, the stones dull with time but arranged in the same small sigh of light. The ring he had stopped believing he would ever see. "I was sent to Victoria Island to pick up groceries," Ebony said softly. "I passed the shop. The name called me, I don't know why. The owner recognized me from following you online. He said this ring has been here for years. He said it belonged to a woman named Igioma who used to pay in coins, who promised to return for it but never did. I asked to hold it. Sir, it felt like a person holding my hand. It wasn't the money. I bought it with your card because he could buy rings because some things must return home. It was the picture." Her words rose in him. His mother with a scarf tied tight, counting coins, promising herself she would return. It was the little ache that money never reached. He took the box, and for a moment his hand and Ebony's hand touched over it, and the buzzing hospital, the rain, the world, all turned down to a low hum. He could see Vanessa's face in his mind, eyebrows arched, laughter pouring like expensive perfume. He could see the 2 women standing side by side inside the strange test he had made, and he felt both foolish and newly awake. "Mr. Okafor?" A voice cut through the hum. A uniformed security guard, trim and stern, approached with 2 more at his back. "We received a call from Exclusive Jewelers. A customer reported your card stolen and being used by—" He looked at Ebony, eyes narrowing. "By house staff." Kel's phone trembled in his palm. A new message blinked to life. From Vanessa. "Babe, I stopped a thief at the store. Your maid. She has your card. I told them to call security. Come now." Let her explain in handcuffs. A cold anger rose in Kel. He turned to the guard. "There's no theft here. I gave her the card." "Sir, we still need to verify," the guard said. "Calls were made. Reports are filed. Please, come with us to the office." A small crowd had already begun to form. Curious nurses, families, the sharp-edged gossip that cuts fast in public places. Phone lifted. Someone whispered, "That's the tech billionaire." Another said, "Ah, see as money turns love to war." Another, "The maid will sleep in cell tonight." Ebony stood very still. Only her fingers, curled near the ring box, betrayed a tremor. She looked at Kel, not begging, not dramatic, just waiting for truth to choose a side. Sir? The guard pressed. Will you accompany us? Kel closed the ring box like a prayer and slipped it into his pocket. He looked at Ebony's damp scarf, at the door where Sunday had disappeared, at the long corridor that smelled like rain and bleach and second chances. He nodded once. We'll go, he said. All of us. As they turned toward the security office, another alert shook his phone so hard he almost dropped it. 65 million Nigerian nairas. Vanessa Lifestyles Limited, private collection. A photo bubbled up beneath the alert. Vanessa's live video, her face glowing, her wrists stacked with new bracelets, her caption shouting, "When your man loves you, he gives you his card and you teach thieves lessons. Watch how I handle mine." They reached the office door. The guard's hand hovered over the handle. Before he pushed it open, Kel leaned close to Ebony and lowered his voice, low enough to be swallowed by the rain. "Ebony," he asked, the question tearing at him like a hook, "why didn't you buy anything for yourself?" She looked up at him, eyes steady. "Sir, I did." "You did." He searched her hands. "What?" She took a breath, and for the first time that night, a small smile warmed the corner of her mouth. "Time," she said. "I bought myself a little time to sleep tonight without guilt." The guard swung the door wide, and inside, seated like a queen on a borrowed throne with a security report in her hand and cameras aimed like arrows, sat Vanessa. "Finally," she purred, eyes sliding to Ebony. "Let's talk about theft." Kel stepped in, the ring heavy in his pocket, the rain heavy on his skin, and for a heartbeat the room was a held breath. Then Vanessa's gaze dropped to his pocket as if she could see through fabric, and her lips parted. "What did she buy?" Vanessa asked, voice sharp with triumph. Kel opened his mouth to answer, but at that same instant, the office phone rang, the nurse on the other end shouting words he could barely catch over the static of his pulse. "Emergency code for Chigazi Sunday. We need the guardian now." Kel froze, half turned toward the hall. Ebony's hand flew to her mouth. The driver's hat, somewhere down the corridor, thudded to the floor again. And just like that, the test he thought he was running snapped, and the night held its breath, and nothing money, pride, control was as simple as it had been that morning. The security office shook with the tone of the ringing phone. Rain drummed against the frosted window, and the fluorescent lights hummed like an impatient crowd. Kel's jaw clenched as the nurse's voice crackled through the line. "Emergency code for Chigazi Sunday. Guardian needed at once." "I'm going," Kel said, already turning. Vanessa stood, bracelets chiming. "You're not going anywhere until we sort out this theft. I caught her using your card. I saved you." She lifted her phone to show her live video, the comments flying. "Everyone is watching. They want justice." The guard glanced between them, uneasy. "Sir, she was named in a report. We still need statements." Kel fixed his eyes on the guard. "I authorized the card. If anyone needs my statement, I'll give it in pediatrics." He reached for the door. Vanessa's smile tightened. "Why are you protecting a maid who stole from you to buy funerals? You're being played." Ebony flinched at the word stole but said nothing. Her scarf was still damp. She stood a half step behind Kel as if the accusation itself could push her backward. Another nurse rushed in, out of breath. "Sir, the boys' consent forms need the cardholder's signature for the remaining balance. Billing is calling, but the line is jammed. We need you now." Kel held the door open for Ebony. "We're coming." They strode into the corridor. The rain's percussion softened the hallway chatter. Families glanced up, faces drawn by fear and hope. Nurses steered beds like boats through a crowded river. Vanessa's heels clicked behind them, unwilling to be left out of the scene she'd started. As they hurried, Kel's mind tried to thread sense through the night. He had not planned for any of this. The test, yes, but not the hospital's white corridors, not the mortuary receipt, not the small white box with his mother's name on it. He'd thought he was measuring hearts with clean lines. Now he was walking inside the mess of human need where clean lines went to die. They reached pediatrics. Sunday stood near a doorway, eyes red, hands twisting his hat into a rope. "Sir, they called code on my boy. Please." A doctor in green scrubs appeared, calm but brisk. I'm Dr. Adeola. We can go ahead, but we need assurance the payment will clear. Also, the boy is O positive. We are low. If a guardian can donate, it would help. I'll cover everything, Kel said. He pulled out his phone. Run the balance on my card. I'll sign now. The doctor nodded and waved a nurse toward billing. Prepare theater 2, she said, then turned back to Sunday. Breathe. We're moving. Kel signed a form. Ebony hovered by the wall, murmuring a prayer under her breath, eyes glistening but steady. Vanessa stood out of the way, phone lifted, careful to catch her good side in the harsh hospital light. Kel's phone vibrated. A message from his bank app flashed. Security hold. Multiple high-value transactions flagged. Call to verify. He swallowed and hit the number. The automated voice pushed him through a maze. Finally, a human came on. Mr. Okafor, we've placed a temporary hold due to reports of possible fraud. What fraud? He snapped. We received a call from a Ms. Vanessa, Lifestyle's limited representative. She reported your domestic staff using the card. As a precaution, we froze large transactions for the next 2 hours unless authorized via secure code. Kel shut his eyes for a beat. I am authorizing now. Release all hospital charges immediately. We can release with a code from your secure token. He checked his pocket. Nothing. The token lay on his kitchen counter, beside the place where he'd left the card earlier to bait destiny. Send code by text, he said. I'm sorry, sir. Due to the fraud alert, we require physical token confirmation. A cold current moved through him. He turned to the nurse at the billing kiosk. They froze the card. I'll do a transfer. She shot him an apologetic look. The system is slow in the rain, sir. If the card is on hold, we need either token-confirmed transfer or cash. I'm sorry. Vanessa's eyebrows rose in triumph. See? This is why you don't let house girls swing your money like a handbag. Before Kel could snap back, Dr. Adeola reappeared, voice low. We can prep without the full amount, but we cannot roll in until billing confirms at least the deposit is clear. We have other cases. This is not a charity ward. Ebony stepped forward. Doctor, I paid the deposit. The nurse cut in, eyes on her screen. It cleared, then got flagged and reversed by the bank system within minutes of the hold. It is pending review. Sunday's hand fell from his hat. He looked hollowed out. Doctor, I beg. Ebony moved before anyone asked. Take my blood, she said to the doctor. I am O positive. The doctor blinked, surprised at the speed of her answer. We'll test to confirm. Test me too, Kel said. But the doctor shook her head. We'll do both. Every minute counts. As they led Ebony to the small donor room, Vanessa muttered, This is ridiculous. It's not her place to. Kel turned to her, voice low and iron. You called the bank? I protected you, she said, eyes wide with innocence. You hand a card to staff, they think it's Santa. I did what any good partner would do. She tilted her phone so the camera caught his profile. My followers are invested in your safety. Kel looked at the lens, at the comments streaming like ice water. Team Vanessa, jail the thief. Rich men be careful. And felt an old ache return. Years ago, when he was just a boy in a one-room face-me-I-face-you in Surrelier, his mother would walk home from the market and sit at the edge of their mattress with hands so tired they shook. She'd count coins into a small tin and hum the same song. We buy time, she would say. Not luxury. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to keep our heads up. He had promised her more than time. He had built apps in the night, pushed updates from borrowed laptops, watched numbers climb like vines on concrete. He had learned to read rooms, investors, smiles. He had learned that people changed when money entered the room. They laughed louder, stood straighter. Some loved the shine, not the soul. He had designed this test because he was tired of asking and never knowing if the yes was for him or for his wallet. He remembered how he first met Vanessa, at a gala in Ikoyi, under chandeliers that looked like frozen rain. She had floated through the room in a silver dress and called his ideas sexy. He remembered how he hired Ebony, through the church where his head cook worshipped, Quiet girl with a neat scarf who said she could iron a shirt till it felt like calm. 2 women, 2 truths, 1 card. Now, in the hallway where rain and bleach twined in the air, the test looked less like a game and more like a mirror no one could avoid. The donor room door opened. A nurse guided Ebony out, a small bandage on her arm. Confirmed, the nurse said to Dr. Adeola. O positive. We're starting the unit. Ebony swayed. Kel steadied her. I'm fine, sir, she murmured, cheeks pale but eyes clear. Another phone trilled, the hospital's line, and a clerk called out, police at the front security desk. They're asking for Ebony, regarding a theft report. Vanessa's smile sharpened. Good. Let the law speak. The clerk's words flew like a thrown stone through the ward. Nurses exchanged looks. Sunday's hands began to tremble again. A child down the hall coughed, a wet bark that made his mother pat his back fast, like a drum. Kel faced Vanessa. You filed a criminal complaint? I told the truth, she said. You're famous, Kel. People use you. They pretend. She'll cry and return everything and learn her place. It will teach the other staff. You can't be soft. Ebony lifted her chin, tired but steady. Madam, I returned nothing because I hid nothing. I can follow the police if it means the boy lives. She turned to the doctor. Please don't stop. The doctor's gaze moved between the group. We're not stopping, she said. But we do need the deposit confirmed or a guarantee from an executive. Put it under my company, Kel said quickly. Okafor Systems. Bill us, and if there is fallout, I take it. The doctor nodded, already writing. Consent forms in Theater 2. Move. A uniformed officer stepped into pediatrics, rainwater dripping from his cap. He read from a paper. We have a report of suspected card theft by a domestic worker named Ebony. We need her to come to the desk. Sunday made a small sound, halfway between a word and a prayer. Kel stepped forward. Officer, I'm the card holder. There was no theft. I authorized her. The officer's eyes flicked from Kel's face to Vanessa's phone camera and back. He lowered his voice. We can sort statements in the office. But if a formal complaint is on file, we still need to take her statement at least. If the complainant insists. Vanessa crossed her arms. I insist. We don't make exceptions because a thief is pretty. Ebony's mouth tightened, but no hurt showed on her face. Only resolve. I'll go, she said, after I sign the donor release. Dr. Adeola appeared again, more urgent now. We're taking the boy in. We still need a guardian to walk to the doors. Mr. Sunday can do it, but he's shaking. We need someone steady. I'll go, Ebony said. The officer took a step closer, hand on the soft jingle of cuffs at his belt. Ma'am, I'm sorry. We can do this politely, but we do need to move. Kel's phone buzzed again, insistent. A new message from the pawn shop. Sir, you left quickly. There is an engraving inside the ring we forgot to tell you. It changes the story. A second line appeared. 3 letters, 2 numbers, V8-19. Does that mean something? His stomach dropped. His mother's ring had an engraving? He had never seen one. 19. The date of a promise? A person's initials? The name Vanessa began with V. His mind leapt, stumbled. Rain rattled the window like a handful of stones. In the theater corridor, the alarm sounded. A thin, high chirp. The nurse at the station looked up sharply. He's dropping. The officer's fingers curled around the cuffs. Dr. Adila's voice cut clean through the noise. We need the donor to walk with us now. Ebony rolled up her sleeve, the adhesive patch still new on her skin. She took a step toward the swinging doors. The officer stepped too, reaching. Vanessa lifted her phone to catch it all, lips curved. Sunday whispered, God, please. Kel moved between Ebony and the cuffs, the ring heavy in his pocket, the engraving burning in his mind, the boy's alarm getting faster. Officer, he said, voice steady. If you take her now, a child might die. The officer hesitated. The alarm became a loud, continuous tone. And in that frozen second, between cuffs and corridor, between old secrets and new choices. Someone shouted from Theater 2, "We're losing him!" The shrill alarm cut through the pediatric ward like a knife. Nurses rushed, pushing carts laden with instruments. A doctor shouted orders, his words drowned under the continuous, heart-stopping beep. Kel's chest tightened. He had been in many tense rooms before, boardrooms, investor calls, even courtrooms where men in suits tried to cut him out of his own company. But this sound of a child slipping away, this was war. "Clear the corridor," Dr. Adeola barked, her eyes sweeping the small group that blocked the theater doors. The officer's hand froze on the cuffs. He looked at the swinging doors, then at Kel, then at Ebony. His face shifted, duty clashing with decency. "Go," he said finally, jerking his chin at Ebony. "Go save the boy first. I'll wait." Ebony didn't hesitate. She slipped past Kel, scarf trailing like a small banner of resolve, and vanished into Theater 2. Sunday fell to his knees, sobbing. "Chigazi, my boy!" Nurses tried to lift him, but he clutched the floor, muttering prayers that mixed Yoruba with broken English. Vanessa, still recording, rolled her eyes. "This is too much drama. If he dies, it won't be because of me. It'll be because you let a maid play doctor with your money." Kel snapped. He turned on her, voice sharp enough to silence even the gossiping nurses at the far end of the hall. "Vanessa, stop." Her phone trembled slightly in her manicured hand. "What?" "You heard me. Stop recording. Stop talking. Stop everything." "But my followers." "Followers." Kel stepped closer, his tone low but dangerous. "A child is fighting for his life, and you're worried about engagement metrics? You think this is content?" For the first time, Vanessa faltered. Her lips parted, but no words came. She lowered the phone slowly, though her glare stayed locked on Ebony's disappearing figure. The alarm from inside the theater shifted tone. Still urgent, but interspersed with commands. "Increase flow. Hold pressure. One more unit." Kel pressed his palm against the glass panel in the theater door. He saw a blur of green scrubs, masks, gloves, a child's small legs strapped and pale under the lights. And there, Ebony, already hooked up to a line, her blood running into a tube that disappeared toward the boy. Her face was pale but calm, lips moving as if she were still whispering prayers. Kel swallowed hard. Something inside him cracked open. He had thought her loyalty would show in small ways, returning change, keeping secrets, scrubbing the marble tiles till they shone. He hadn't imagined this. She was giving parts of herself away, without thought of reward, without fear. The guard beside him murmured, "She's braver than most." Minutes stretched into an eternity. Sunday rocked back and forth on the floor, his forehead pressed to the tiles. Vanessa paced, muttering about wasted time. The officer leaned on the wall, cuffs now silent at his belt. Then, finally, the alarm softened. It didn't stop, but the high continuous tone broke into a steady rhythm. A nurse pushed out through the doors, removing her gloves. "He's stabilizing," she said quickly. "We need to continue surgery, but the crisis passed. For now." Sunday crumpled with relief. "Thank you, Jesus," he wept. "Thank you." Kel exhaled, his body sagging against the wall. He hadn't realized how tightly he'd been holding his breath. But then he noticed something. The nurse wasn't done speaking. "However," she hesitated, her gaze flicking to Kel, "there's another matter." "What matter?" Kel asked. She looked at him squarely. "Your staff, the donor, she fainted after giving blood. She's stable, but she hit her head as she went down. She's being moved to observation now." Kel's stomach dropped. "Where?" "Room 214. They'll keep her overnight for monitoring." Before he could move, Vanessa scoffed. "See? All this stress over a maid. She's probably faking for attention. Women like her always know how to play the victim card." Kel rounded on her, voice dark. "Enough, Vanessa." But even as he said it, his phone buzzed again. Another message from the pawn shop. "Sir, about the engraving V8-19. We found records. It was pawned by a woman years ago, but she didn't leave her real name. She left initials, VD. Kel froze. VD Vanessa Daramola. The letters stabbed at his memory. Could it be coincidence? Or had Vanessa pawned his mother's ring years ago? He replayed the shopkeeper's words in his head. A woman who promised to return but never did. His mother hadn't pawned that ring. Someone else had. Kel's gaze snapped to Vanessa, her gold bracelets catching the harsh hospital light. She noticed his stare and tilted her chin. "What?" she said, irritation dripping from her voice. Kel slipped his hand into his pocket, his fingers curling around the ring box. His mind was a storm. Did Vanessa know this ring before tonight? Was that why she was so desperate to drag Ebony down? The officer's radio crackled. Unit reporting. Press gathering outside St. Gabriel Memorial. They say Billionaire involved in fraud dispute. What's your status? The officer glanced at Kel apologetically. Sir, this is escalating. We need to resolve the theft complaint now before it becomes a circus. Vanessa smirked, adjusting her hair. Good. Let's finish this. I want her in handcuffs before the reporters arrive. But Kel wasn't listening anymore. His mind was racing through dates, faces, voices, the engraving, the initials, the missing ring, his mother's tired hands counting coins. And just as his heart began to stitch together a terrible suspicion, a nurse rushed toward them, panic in her eyes. The nurse's words struck like lightning. She's not waking up. The corridor felt the floor sway beneath him. Kel's hand clenched around the ring box. He pushed past the officer, and for the first time in years, still on his knees, not money, Vanessa's pride, truly owned him, and stormed down the corridor. His shoes slapped against the wet tile, heart pounding faster with each step. Room 214. He burst inside to find Ebony lying on the narrow hospital bed, her scarf removed, damp hair curling against her forehead. A monitor beeped softly beside her, but her eyelids didn't flutter. Her lips didn't move with those quiet prayers he had come to expect. A nurse adjusted the 4-line. She fainted after donation. Her blood pressure dropped too quickly. We're stabilizing her. But she hit her head. Mild concussion, maybe worse. We'll need to scan if she doesn't wake soon. Kel moved closer, his throat dry. She'll wake. The nurse gave him a sympathetic look. She's strong, sir. But sometimes the body surprises us. Behind him, footsteps clicked. Vanessa leaned against the doorframe, phone still in hand. Are we really wasting time over this? She asked, her tone dripping with scorn. She's a maid, Kel. She should never have meddled with your card in the first place. This drama is self-inflicted. Kel spun on her, voice low but sharp. Vanessa, out. Her smirk faltered. Excuse me, out. Now. For once, she hesitated. Her eyes darted from his face to the unconscious Ebony. Then back. You're really letting a servant out. His voice thundered, echoing against the sterile walls. Nurses nearby froze. Vanessa's face hardened. She lifted her chin and slipped out, muttering under her breath. Kel turned back to Ebony. His hand hovered over hers, then finally settled, gently on her fingers. They were warm but limp. He felt something in his chest twist painfully. He remembered their first meeting. She had been ironing his shirt, smoothing out wrinkles with delicate care. She'd said softly, Sir, a man who steps out with a rough collar looks like he's fighting the world. Let me take that fight from you. He had laughed at the time, brushing it off. But now her words came back like prophecy. She had been fighting for him, for others, without asking anything in return. His phone buzzed again. Another message from the pawn shop. Correction. The initials on the pawn slip were VD, but the handwriting is jagged, possibly disguised. The woman used sunglasses and a scarf. Our old manager swore she looked nervous. Date: August 19, 2010. Kel's heart skipped. He had been 17 that year, broke, trying to keep his mother's medicine coming. Vanessa would have been in her early 20s then, already moving in circles of luxury. Could she have been the one? Or was fate playing a cruel trick? The ring in his pocket burned heavier. Mr. Okafor? The doctor entered, pulling him back to the present. The boy is stable for now. Surgery continues. But your donor, she gestured at Ebony, will need to monitor carefully. The head trauma could worsen if she doesn't regain consciousness soon. Sunday appeared at the door, hat clutched to his chest. His eyes brimmed. Sir, the boy my Chigazi, alive because of her. Tell me how to thank her. Kel swallowed hard. We don't thank her with words. We thank her with action. He turned to the nurse. Do whatever it takes. Money, machines, specialists, I don't care. Keep her alive. The nurse nodded. Vanessa's voice floated in again from the corridor. And who keeps you alive, Kel? Don't forget who you brought here as your woman. Kel stiffened. He stepped into the doorway, meeting her glare. A woman who calls the police on the innocent? Who freezes my card when a child is dying? Who turns a hospital into her stage? He shook his head slowly. Maybe I've been blind. Vanessa's nostrils flared. Blind? Don't twist this. That girl is a nobody, and you're falling for her act. Kel slipped his hand into his pocket, fingering the small white box. His voice was calm, almost too calm. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am falling. But not for an act. For truth. And truth has nothing to sell. The corridor fell silent. Vanessa's phone camera, still recording, caught every word. Then, before either could speak again, the officer's radio crackled. Unit, reporters have entered the lobby. They're demanding a statement about the billionaire, his maid, and the alleged theft. Do we bring them up? The officer looked uneasy. Sir, this won't stay quiet. We'll have to address it. Kel glanced at Ebony's still form through the glass. Then at Vanessa's glittering bracelets. Then at the ring that still weighed in his pocket. Fine, Kel said. Bring them up. Let's tell the truth. But just as he spoke, Ebony's monitor beeped rapidly. Nurses rushed in. Her body twitched, and her lips parted. Kel froze at her bedside, heart hammering. Her first whispered word, barely audible, slipped through the room like a secret no one was ready for. Igioma. Kel staggered back. His mother's name. Vanessa's eyes widened, her phone catching everything. The nurses leaned closer, urging, say it again. But Ebony's eyes fluttered closed, and the monitor alarm rose again. Kel's hand tightened on the ring box, realization dawning like thunder. Ebony knew something. She had said his mother's name. But how? And what did it mean? The beep of Ebony's monitor quickened, echoing like a war drum in the cramped hospital room. Nurses moved with urgency, checking lines, adjusting oxygen, murmuring in low voices. Kel stood frozen, her whispered word replaying in his mind like a haunting refrain. Igioma, his mother's name. How could Ebony, his maid, utter a name she had no reason to know at such a fragile moment? The thought clawed at him. Stabilize her, the doctor commanded. Don't let her slip. Kel's hand gripped the bed rail. His usually steady voice cracked as he whispered, Stay with me, Ebony. Behind him, Vanessa leaned into the doorway, her phone still recording. You see? She said, voice sharp with mockery. She's delirious, babbling names to confuse you. Don't you get it? She's playing you even in her sleep. Kel turned slowly, his glare so fierce that Vanessa faltered. Not another word, he warned, his tone low and dangerous. The officer stepped between them, radio still buzzing at his hip. Sir, the reporters are upstairs now. They're demanding a press statement. If we don't control the story, it will spread wild. Vanessa tossed her braids and straightened her dress. Perfect. Let me handle it. They'll hear the truth from me. The billionaire's fiancée, the woman who protected his fortune. This whole mess will end in my favor. Kel let out a humorless laugh. Fiancé? He shook his head slowly. You wear the word like a borrowed dress, Vanessa, but it doesn't fit. Her eyes widened, fury flashing in them. You dare. But before she could spit another word, Sunday appeared at the door again, tears streaming, clutching his driver's hat to his chest. Sir, doctor says my Chigazi is still fighting, but they need more blood by dawn. If they don't, his voice broke. If they don't, my son might. Kel put a firm hand on the man's shoulder. He won't die. Not while I'm here. Vanessa scoffed. You're making promises you can't keep. Money can't fix everything, Kel. Kel reached into his pocket, pulled out the ring box and opened it. The dull stones gleamed faintly under the fluorescent lights. Sometimes, he said softly, money brings back what was stolen. The room went silent. Vanessa's eyes locked on the ring, and for the first time that night, her confidence cracked. The smirk vanished, replaced by a flicker of recognition she couldn't hide. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Kel caught it. That brief tremor in her expression told him everything. You know this ring, he said, his voice calm but edged with steel. She looked around quickly, then forced a laugh. No. How would I know an old trinket like that? But the officer stepped forward, eyeing her. Ma'am, is there something you'd like to tell us about this piece? Her throat bobbed. It's meaningless. Just a cheap pawn shop thing. Kel snapped the box shut. Meaningless? That ring belonged to my mother. And years ago, it was pawned under initials VD. Those happen to be yours, Vanessa Daramola. Gasps rippled among the nurses in the room. Even Sunday's eyes widened. Vanessa's painted lips trembled, but she quickly hardened her face. Coincidence, she spat. There are plenty of VDS in Lagos. Stop reaching. Kel stepped closer, his voice a low growl. Tell me, Vanessa, where were you on August 19, 2010? She flinched, just slightly but enough. Before the silence could strangle the air, the officer's radio crackled again. Crowd swelling in the lobby. They want answers now. Should we bring them upstairs? Vanessa seized the moment. Yes, she cried, eyes blazing. Bring them. I'll tell them how this maid stole your card, how I exposed her, how she nearly ruined a child's surgery. They'll know who the villain is here. Kel looked through the glass at Ebony, still unconscious, her fragile breaths monitored by machines. Then he looked back at Vanessa, whose eyes glittered with ambition rather than love. His decision was instant. Fine, he said. Bring the reporters up. The officer gave a curt nod and spoke into his radio. Vanessa straightened, already rehearsing her speech in her head. She smoothed her dress, fixed her hair, and angled her phone to catch the right lighting. Kel slipped the ring box back into his pocket and muttered under his breath. The world will hear the truth tonight. And then, just as the footsteps of approaching reporters echoed down the corridor, a faint sound stirred from the bed. Ebony's lips moved again, this time louder, clearer. Igioma kept her promise. The entire room froze. Kel's blood ran cold. What promise? How did Ebony know his mother's secrets? Before anyone could press her for more, the door at the end of the corridor burst open, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Billionaire scandal. Who's the maid? Did she steal the card? Who owns the ring? The flashbulbs lit the hallway like lightning, and in that chaos, Vanessa stepped forward, ready to seize the stage. But Kel wasn't looking at her. His eyes were locked on Ebony, whose unconscious lips had just unraveled the first thread of a truth he wasn't ready for. And deep in his chest, a storm was about to break. The hospital corridor turned into a battlefield of flashing cameras and flying questions. Reporters swarmed in like bees drawn to a wound, microphones outstretched, voices overlapping. Mr. Okafor, is it true your maid stole your credit card? Who's the woman in the hospital bed? Is she your mistress? Vanessa, what's your role in all of this? Are you engaged? Or is this a scandal? The security officer raised his hands. Clear the way. Keep order. But the crowd pressed harder. Vanessa stepped forward, her smile rehearsed, voice smooth as silk. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'll set the record straight. I'm Vanessa Daramola, Kel Okafor's partner. Tonight, I protected him. His maid, she gestured dismissively toward Ebony's room, stole his card and ran wild. I intervened. That's why the bank froze transactions. If not for me, millions would have been lost. Flashes erupted. Pens scribbled. Heads nodded. Kel stood still, jaw tight, watching her weave her story like a spider spinning a web. Ask yourself, Vanessa continued, her voice carrying over the corridor. What kind of maid spends her boss's fortune on burials and surgeries for strangers? It's absurd. Emotional manipulation. She's pretending to be a saint to cover her theft. I caught her in the act. That's why security and police are here tonight. The truth is clear. Reporters murmured, already shaping headlines. Billionaire's maid caught in credit card scandal. But then, a weak sound floated from the hospital bed. Ebony's voice. Faint, but enough to cut through the noise. Not theft, promise. Heads turned. Cameras swung toward the glass. Nurses gasped. Kel's heart lurched. He moved to the bed, lowering his ear close to Ebony's lips. What promise, Ebony? Speak. Her lashes trembled. Her lips parted. Igioma, said the ring, must find its way home. The ring. His mother's ring. The weight in his pocket suddenly felt like destiny pressing down. Kel turned sharply to the crowd. His voice boomed, commanding silence. Enough lies. The reporters hushed. Even Vanessa stiffened, the smile on her face cracking. This woman you call a thief, Kel said, gesturing toward Ebony. Took my card to save lives. She paid for a child's surgery. She gave my gardener's wife a decent burial. And she... He pulled out the box, snapped it open, and held up the ring for all to see. Brought back my late mother's lost ring. A ring pawned years ago under initials that match Vanessa's. A ring my mother prayed would return home. Gasps rippled through the corridor. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing the gleam of the ring. Vanessa's eyes widened, her composure finally slipping. Kel, stop this madness. You're humiliating me. Kel turned on her, voice cutting. You humiliated yourself when you called the police on an innocent woman. When you froze the funds that could have saved a child faster. When you turned a hospital into your stage. The officer cleared his throat. Sir, if what you say is true, then the theft report is false. That's a criminal offense. He fixed his gaze on Vanessa. Madam, do you wish to amend your statement? Sweat shone on Vanessa's brow. I only did what I thought was best for him. I didn't mean. The reporters smelled blood. Questions flew again, louder this time. Vanessa, did you pawn the ring? Are you the one who sold the billionaire's family heirloom? Are you using him for money? Kel, are you ending the relationship tonight? Vanessa's carefully constructed world crumbled under the lights. She stammered, trying to recover, but the crowd wasn't forgiving. Kel raised a hand, silencing them once more. His voice softened, but the weight of his words carried through the hall. My mother once told me, money doesn't reveal who you are. It reveals who you've been all along. Tonight, two women showed me who they really are. One bought jewelry and lies. The other bought time. Time for a boy to live. Time for a poor man to bury his wife. Time for a promise to be kept. His gaze swept back to Ebony, pale and still but breathing. Tell me, he asked the reporters, his voice now a challenge. Who deserves to stand beside me? The cameras clicked. The crowd buzzed. And for the first time, the story shifted, no longer about theft, but about truth, love, and betrayal. But just as the tension peaked, another nurse burst from the surgical theater, her face pale. Dr. Adeola needs the guardian now. The boy is crashing again. They need a family signature or we lose him. Sunday stumbled forward, but his shaking hands couldn't hold the pen thrust at him. He collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Kel snatched the clipboard, his voice steady as steel. Then I'll be his guardian. Tonight, Chigazi is my son too. The nurse nodded and rushed back inside, papers in hand. Reporters gasped, cameras flashed brighter than lightning, and Vanessa's gasp echoed down the hall. Kel slipped the ring back into his pocket, his mind made up. But before the crowd could recover from his words, Ebony's voice, weak but clear, drifted once more. Sir, there's more about your mother. The room froze. Kel leaned in, heart hammering. What about my mother? Her lips moved, but the words were swallowed by another loud alarm. This time from Theater 2. The child was on the edge again. And so was the truth. The sharp alarm from Theater 2 split the air, shriller and more urgent than before. Doctors' voices barked commands, and nurses scrambled like soldiers on a front line. The reporters, caught in the sudden storm of life and death, fell silent. Cameras lowered, the flashing stopped. Kel's pulse thundered in his ears. He glanced once at Ebony, her lips still trembling as though she fought to speak, and then back toward the double doors of the operating theater where the boy's life dangled on the edge of a thread. "Guardian signature confirmed," a nurse shouted. "We're moving." Sunday staggered to his feet, gripping Kel's arm. "God bless you, sir. God bless you." His tears flowed freely, soaking into his worn jacket. Kel squeezed the man's shoulder. "We're not finished yet. Chigazi is still fighting." Vanessa, standing back now with her phone lowered for once, muttered bitterly, "This is madness. He's not your responsibility. Why risk so much for people beneath you?" Kel turned, eyes blazing. "Because humanity is never beneath anyone, Vanessa. Maybe that's something you'll never understand." The reporters' pens scratched rapidly, their cameras raised again. Not for Vanessa this time, but for Kel. His words struck like thunder. The officer leaned in, lowering his voice. "Sir, the public will hear all of this. You'll be on every headline by morning. Do you want this story told now?" Kel glanced toward Ebony's bed. Her pale hand lay against the sheet, fingers twitching slightly as though holding onto invisible threads. She had murmured his mother's name twice already. He couldn't ignore that. "Yes," he said firmly. "Let the world hear, but not lies, truth." At that exact moment, Theater 2's doors burst open. Dr. Adeola stormed out, mask hanging loose around her neck, sweat gleaming on her forehead. "We're losing him again," she cried. "We need more blood. Immediate. We've run through the donor's supply." Sunday fell to his knees with a wail. "Chigazi, my son." Kel didn't think. "Test me again," he shouted. "I'm O positive." The doctor hesitated, then nodded sharply. "If you're a match, we draw now. Follow me." As they dragged him into the donor room, the reporters surged forward, shouting questions. "Mr. Okafor, are you really donating blood yourself? Is this a redemption act for your maid? Are you replacing your driver's child with your own legacy?" The words swirled, but Kel's mind was fixed. As the nurse tied a band around his arm and the needle slid into his vein, he whispered a prayer he hadn't spoken since his mother's funeral. "Lord, take from me and give to him." Blood flowed into the bag, warm and steady. He stared at the red stream and thought of his mother's tired hands, thought of Ebony's trembling lips, thought of the boy gasping behind the theater doors. Minutes later, the doctor's voice rang from beyond the curtain. "Blood's in. Resume compression. Increase flow." Kel closed his eyes. He could feel his strength ebbing, but a strange calm settled over him. This was what his wealth, his strength, his body itself was for. Not for vanity, not for glittering galas, but for life. When it was done, the nurse pressed cotton to his arm and guided him out. Kel stumbled, but he forced himself upright. The reporters fell silent again as they watched him emerge pale, drained, but standing tall. Suddenly, a cry rose from Theater 2. Not a cry of despair. This time, a cheer. Dr. Adeola appeared again, mask hanging, eyes glistening. "We've got him. Chigazi is breathing on his own. The boy is alive." The corridor erupted in gasps and murmurs. Sunday collapsed in gratitude, pounding the floor with his fists as he wept. Reporters snapped photos, capturing Kel's weary face and the father's broken joy. But even in that wave of relief, Kel's eyes darted back to room 214. To Ebony. He stumbled toward her bed, ignoring the chaos around him. Nurses parted. Vanessa hissed his name, but he didn't turn. He sank into the chair by her side, clutching her limp hand. "Ebony, it worked. The boy is alive. You saved him. Wake up and hear it." Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, painfully, she opened them. Kel leaned closer, his voice breaking. You said my mother's name. How do you know Igioma? Ebony's lips trembled. Tears slid from the corners of her eyes. Her whisper was ragged but clear enough to freeze Kel's blood. Because she saved me too. Years ago, when I was a child, abandoned, she took me in, fed me, clothed me. She said, "One day, return this kindness to my son." Gasps filled the room. Nurses exchanged stunned looks. Kel's chest heaved. What are you saying? Ebony's tears shone in the harsh hospital light. Her hand squeezed his weakly. Igioma was my mother too. The words landed like thunder. The room spun. The reporters' pens fell silent. Even Vanessa's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Kel staggered back, his mind roaring. No, that's impossible. But Ebony's voice, fragile as a candle flame, whispered the final blow. She told me, if I ever found you, never let you walk alone. And with that, her eyes drifted shut again. The monitor beeped steadily, but her body slipped back into fragile sleep. Kel stood frozen, torn between shock, disbelief, and a dawning truth that could unravel everything he thought he knew about his past, his family, and his future. The reporters erupted in chaos once more. Half-sister? Secret family? What does this mean for the billionaire empire? Vanessa staggered against the wall, pale, as though the floor had fallen beneath her feet. Kel's hand trembled as it hovered over the ring box in his pocket. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, clear as the night she died. One day, you'll know why I kept some things hidden. The truth had arrived, and it was bigger than any test, any wealth, any betrayal. But was it too late to hold on to Ebony? The hospital corridor boiled with noise. Reporters shouted over one another. Cameras flashed, and microphones crowded like a forest of metal stems, each one desperate to catch Kel's next word. Is she really your sister? Mr. Okafor, will this affect your empire? Was your mother hiding another child? Did the maid lie to gain sympathy? Kel stood like stone beside Ebony's bed, his hand still hovering above hers. The truth she had whispered echoed through him like a drumbeat he couldn't silence. She told me, if I ever found you, never let you walk alone. It made too much sense. His mother, Igioma, had always disappeared for stretches when he was younger, slipping into the poorer districts with food baskets. He had assumed it was charity. But what if it was more? What if she had carried secrets he was too young to recognize? Vanessa saw the storm in his eyes and leapt at her chance. She snatched her phone from the floor, flipped her hair, and raised her voice so it carried over the reporters. Don't believe this maid's fairy tale, she cried. Look at her, lying unconscious, murmuring nonsense to gain pity. Sister? Please, it's manipulation. She's spinning stories to climb into his fortune. Cameras swung to her, capturing every sneer. I've been with Kel for years, Vanessa went on. If he had a sister, don't you think I'd know? Don't you think his late father, his family, his board of directors would know? She's an opportunist, nothing more. Some reporters nodded, scribbling furiously. Others looked uncertain. The crowd murmured, split between scandal and sympathy. Kel raised his hand, silencing them. His voice dropped low, but the command in it stilled the air. Vanessa, every word you speak digs your own grave. Tonight, I watched a woman risk her life, bleed for a child who wasn't hers, and bring back a piece of my mother's memory I thought lost forever. And you... His eyes pinned her like arrows. You froze funds, called police, and turned a hospital into your stage. You've shown the world who you really are. The reporters gasped. Pens scratched faster. Vanessa's face paled. Kel, listen. Enough. He turned away from her. The officer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Sir, given her actions tonight, we'll need to decide whether to pursue a false complaint charge against Ms. Daramola. Reporters erupted again. Vanessa, will you be arrested? Kel, are you pressing charges? Vanessa's chest rose and fell. For the first time that night, her voice cracked. Kel, don't do this. Don't let her destroy what we have. Kel laughed, cold and humorless. What we have, what we had was an illusion. And tonight, illusions are finished. The officer scribbled notes as cameras clicked like firecrackers. Then, suddenly, the steady beep of Ebony's monitor spiked. Her eyes fluttered open. The entire corridor stilled. Every reporter, every nurse, every soul frozen in anticipation. Her lips parted, voice faint but firm. "Sir, the ring. It has the proof." Kel jerked the box from his pocket and opened it. His hands shook as he slid the ring out. Nurses leaned in. Reporters shoved closer. Even Vanessa's eyes widened with dread. Ebony's gaze fixed on the ring, her eyes glistening. Inside, the engraving. It's not just letters. It's the name of the village, where we both began. Kel squinted, heart hammering. He tilted the ring toward the harsh hospital light. The dull stones glimmered, and faint scratches inside the band caught his eye. Reporters surged forward. Cameras zoomed in. There, just visible, was an inscription he'd never noticed before. Yumyuk Igioma. Gasps broke like thunder. Nurses exchanged astonished glances. Sunday dropped his hat, whispering, "Jesus Christ." Kel's throat closed. Yumyuk, his mother's village. A place she had never taken him. A place she'd spoken of only once in hushed tones. And now it was etched inside the ring, etched as if meant for this moment. Ebony's voice shook as she whispered, "That's where she found me. That's where she said I belonged. Until the day I found you." The reporters went mad. Confirmed connection. Lost sister. Billionaire family secret revealed. Vanessa staggered back, her face pale, her carefully constructed world collapsing. Kel turned to the cameras, his voice deep, resonant. "Tonight you came here for scandal, but what you found is something else. Not theft, not betrayal, but truth, and the beginning of a story my mother meant for me to uncover. Whether she is my sister or not, Ebony has shown more loyalty, more courage, and more love than anyone else in this room." The reporters' flashes blinded the hall. Headlines were being written in real time. But just as the chaos reached its peak, Dr. Adeola emerged from Theater 2 again. Her face was grim. "Mr. Okafor," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "The boy is alive, but there's a complication. His father cannot afford the ongoing care. If no one steps up to take responsibility, he could still be lost." The corridor froze again. Kel looked from the trembling Sunday to the pale Ebony, then down at the ring in his palm. And in that moment, he knew the next choice he made would change not just his empire, but the very definition of family. The fluorescent lights above flickered faintly, throwing restless shadows across the corridor. All eyes were on Kel. The reporters leaned in, microphones thrust forward, their pens hungry for the next headline. Nurses whispered at the edge of the crowd. Sunday trembled by the wall, and Ebony lay pale on her bed, her breathing shallow but steady. Dr. Adela's words still hung in the air. If no one steps up to take responsibility, the boy could still be lost. Kel turned slowly, his voice steady but low, carrying weight that silenced the room. "Then I'll take responsibility." The words struck like thunder. Gasps rippled through the corridor. Reporters erupted, cameras flashing like 1,000 lightning bolts. "You'll adopt him? You'll pay for his care? Is this out of guilt, or is this love?" Sunday fell at Kel's feet, clutching his legs. Sir, how can I thank you? My boy will live. He will live." His tears spilled freely, his body shaking with relief. Kel bent down, lifting the man gently by the shoulders. "Sunday, you've given me years of loyalty. Tonight, I give you my word, your son will never lack again. His education, his health, his future. It's mine to protect." The reporters' voices clashed again, but one question pierced above the rest. "Mr. Okafor, does this mean you consider you're made part of your family now?" Kel looked toward Ebony, her fragile form lying beneath white sheets. The ring in his palm seemed to glow with memory. He stepped closer to her bed, his voice rising for all to hear. Whether blood ties prove it or not, she has shown me something money cannot buy. She gave her blood for another's child. She carried my mother's kindness forward. She brought back her ring, her memory, her promise. That is more family than I have seen in years. Gasps. Applause from a few nurses. Reporters scribbled furiously, knowing they were capturing history in the making. Vanessa, pale and trembling now, tried to cut in. Kel, stop this nonsense. You're throwing your empire to the wolves. Your board will never allow this. If you align yourself with her, with these nobodies, you'll ruin everything you've built. Kel turned sharply, his voice like a blade. Vanessa, I gave you trust and you gave me betrayal. I gave you love and you gave me lies. Tonight I saw who you are and who she is, and I would rather build my empire on truth than on glittering rot. The officer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Sir, do you want to proceed with charges against Ms. Daramola for the false theft report? Vanessa's eyes widened. Kel, don't you dare. Kel's gaze was cold, final. Officer, do your duty. The reporters roared with excitement as the officer gestured for his men. Vanessa screamed in protest, fighting against the grip of two uniformed officers as they led her away. You'll regret this, Kel. You'll regret it. Her voice echoed down the hall, shrill and fading. But Kel didn't flinch. He turned back to Ebony, her weak fingers curling slightly against the sheet. He reached for her hand, clasping it gently. Rest, he whispered. When you wake, we'll talk about everything. Your childhood, my mother, the promises she left behind. For now, just rest. Her lips parted faintly, and though she didn't open her eyes, a single word slipped out. Brother! The word pierced Kel to the bone. For a long moment, he stood frozen, unsure if he should feel comforted or torn apart. The reporters caught every second, their cameras flashing. But even they seemed subdued, as if realizing they were no longer recording scandal, but witnessing something sacred, an empire bending toward love and truth. Then Dr. Adeola reappeared, her face grim once more. Mr. Okafor, she said, there's one more complication. Chigozie will survive the surgery, but without a long-term guardian's consent, he cannot legally be discharged to ongoing private care. And if his father cannot provide... She trailed off, glancing at the frail Sunday. Kel straightened, his voice firm. Then I'll sign it. From tonight, Chigozie is under my guardianship. Sunday collapsed again, sobbing openly, while the reporters shouted over one another. Billionaire adopts driver's son. Scandal turns to miracle. Empire heir redefines family. Kel squeezed Ebony's hand one last time, then turned to the cameras. His face was pale, his body drained, but his voice thundered with resolve. Tonight I learned that wealth isn't measured in jewelry, cars, or bank alerts. Wealth is measured in lives touched, in promises kept, in family found where you least expect it. My empire means nothing if I don't use it for this. The flashes blinded, the pens flew, and the world outside those hospital walls would wake to a headline it never saw coming. But even as Kel made his declaration, Ebony stirred once more, whispering words that made his heart seize all over again. Sir, there's more about your father. The corridor froze, and Kel realized the storm was not over. The corridor stilled. Every breath, every shuffle of feet, even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to pause when Ebony's frail voice broke the silence. More about your father. Kel's heart lurched. His father, the man who had built the skeleton of their wealth before dying with secrets stitched into his grave. A man Kel had respected but never fully trusted. Kel leaned close, his voice raw. What about him, Ebony? What do you know? Her lips trembled. Her eyelids fluttered but did not open. He knew about me. About you. He knew your mother's promise. Gasps rippled through the room. Kel's fists clenched. That's impossible. My father would never. But Ebony pressed on, her whisper like a dagger of truth. When your mother brought me food in Umyuk, sometimes he came too. He said, if anything happened, if you grew apart, He'd leave a way for us to find each other again. The reporters leaned in, desperate to catch every syllable. Vanessa's voice was no longer there to poison the air. She was gone, dragged away in disgrace. Only Ebony's trembling words filled the hall now. Kel's throat closed. What way? Her lips moved, barely audible. The trust, the documents, hidden. In the ring. Look closer. Kel froze. Slowly, he lifted the ring toward the light once again. He squinted at the faint engravings inside the band. Before, he had only seen the name of the village. But now, pressing the stone at an angle, a second layer of etching emerged, so tiny it had seemed invisible at first. Numbers, dates, an account reference. The reporters gasped again. One whispered, "A hidden code." Kel's breath caught. His father's way. His mother's ring had carried the key all along. He closed the box with a snap and whispered, "So they both knew. They both planned for this." Ebony's chest rose weakly. He wasn't perfect, but he loved you. He loved her, and he wanted us to stand together. Her strength gave way, and her eyes closed again. Nurses rushed to her side, checking her vitals. The monitor steadied. She was alive, but the effort had drained her. Kel stood, pale but unshaken now. He turned to the reporters, his voice carrying like a verdict. "You came here for scandal, but you've witnessed a revelation. My empire was not just mine. It was built on promises my parents left for me to uncover. Tonight, I found my mother's lost child. Tonight, I gained a sister." The corridor thundered with murmurs and flashes. The headline had shifted again, from scandal to miracle to legacy. Kel's gaze softened as it returned to Ebony. "She's not a maid anymore. She's family. My sister, my blood. And from this day forward, she'll never live in shadows again." Sunday collapsed in gratitude once more, and even hardened nurses dabbed their eyes. Kel straightened, his voice firm. "As for the empire, it will not crumble because of this. It will grow. With her by my side, it will grow on truth." The officer, moved despite himself, murmured, "Never seen a night like this." The reporters clamored for final words. Kel raised his hand, silencing them one last time. "Tell the world this," he said, his eyes blazing. "I gave 2 women my card tonight. One bought jewelry and lies. The other bought hope, dignity, and life. And in giving, she gave me back something greater, my family." The corridor erupted. Cameras exploded with light. Nurses clapped softly. Sunday wept like a man reborn. And as Kel clasped the ring tight in his fist, he whispered a vow only he and the walls could hear. "Mother, I kept the promise. I found her." Behind him, the door to Theater 2 opened again, and a nurse emerged with news. "Chigazi is stable. He will recover." Kel closed his eyes, relief crashing through him. The night that began with betrayal had ended with revelation. A boy lived. A maid was revealed as blood. A false lover was exposed. And an empire, once thought secure in riches, was now anchored in truth. As reporters rushed to file their stories, Kel leaned over Ebony's bed and whispered, "Rest now, sister. Tomorrow, we begin again. Together." The monitor beeped steadily beside her, as if echoing the beat of a new dawn. And outside St. Gabriel Memorial, the rain finally stopped.